The Grand Martial Arts Expo was buzzing with energy. Fighters, students, and fans from across Asia had gathered to witness live demonstrations from some of the world's most renowned masters. Cameras flashed, kids practiced kicks in the aisles, and chants echoed across the arena. Among the performers was Ethan Lee, a 26-year-old Taekwondo world champion known as the Lightning Kick. His speed was unmatched, his confidence unshakable. As he wrapped his black belt tightly, he looked around with a smirk. "No one here can touch me," he bragged to his students, his voice loud enough for nearby spectators to hear. The crowd laughed and clapped. Ethan was their hero. He had charisma, skill, and a swagger that drew attention wherever he went. But then the host announced something that made the entire hall buzz with excitement. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hollywood legend and 6-time world karate champion Steven Seagal." The lights shifted. Slowly, Seagal walked in wearing his trademark black GI and dark-tinted glasses. His presence was calm but commanding, the kind that made the room go silent without him saying a word. His every step carried quiet authority. Ethan's smile faded for a moment, but pride wouldn't let him stay silent. He turned to his team and said with a laugh, "That old actor? He's past his prime. I'd love to see if those movie moves work in real life." The crowd gasped. Some laughed nervously, others whispered, "He shouldn't have said that." Seagal simply stood at the far end of the mat, hands folded behind his back, unfazed. Ethan grinned, stepping forward. "Sensei Seagal," he said mockingly. "How about a friendly match? Let's see what the legend still got." Seagal tilted his head slightly, studying the young man for a long, silent moment. Then in a low, steady voice, he replied, "Are you sure you're ready for this?" The room went silent again. Every phone in the audience lifted to record. Everyone could feel it, and something big was about to happen. What happened next would silence the entire arena. The arena air grew heavier as Steven Seagal stepped onto the mat. His movements were slow, deliberate, like a man who didn't need to prove anything. He bowed slightly to the host, then glanced toward Ethan Lee, whose smirk hadn't faded. Ethan clapped sarcastically. "It's an honor, Sensei," he said, voice dripping with irony. "I've seen your movies, lots of wrist flips, right? Let's see if those tricks work against real Taekwondo." The crowd murmured. Some chuckled nervously. Others exchanged uneasy looks. Everyone knew Steven Seagal wasn't just an actor. He was a true martial artist, trained in Aikido, Kendo, and Karate. But Ethan didn't care. Pride had already taken the driver's seat. Seagal didn't respond right away. He simply removed his sunglasses, revealing calm, steel-gray eyes. His tone was low, almost gentle. "Young man, fighting isn't about showing off. It's about control. Of your mind, not your mouth." Ethan shrugged. "Then let's control some kicks, old man." The audience gasped. Seagal smiled faintly as though amused by the boy's arrogance. Without another word, he gestured to the referee, signaling he accepted the challenge. The referee raised his hand. "This will be a friendly demonstration only. No injuries, no egos." But everyone in the room knew egos were already in the ring. As they squared off, Ethan's students cheered wildly. "Let's go, champ."
"Show him who's boss!"
Ethan bounced lightly on his toes, eyes sharp, legs twitching with energy. Seagal stood completely still, no stance, no visible tension. He looked almost relaxed, like a man meditating in the middle of chaos. The referee's hand dropped. "Begin." Ethan launched forward instantly as a blur of movement. His right leg snapped out in a lightning-fast roundhouse kick aimed at Seagal's head. The speed was stunning. The crowd roared. But Seagal didn't even blink. He leaned back just enough for the kick to miss by an inch. Ethan landed, surprised. "Not bad," he muttered, then came in again, double kick, side spin, front push. Each strike faster than the last. Seagal deflected them effortlessly with subtle wrist turns, small sidesteps, movements so efficient they almost looked fake. The crowd grew restless. "He's not even fighting back," someone shouted. Another yelled, "Come on, hit him, Ethan!" But Seagal stayed silent. His eyes followed Ethan's every motion with the precision of a hawk watching its prey. Finally, after a minute of relentless strikes, Ethan stepped back, sweating. "That's all you've got?" "Just dodging?" Seagal's reply was calm. The best fighter doesn't fight. He lets his opponent defeat himself. The arena erupted in whispers. The phrase hit hard. Ethan's pride flared. His face turned red with anger. He lunged forward again, faster this time, trying to prove his worth. Seagal moved slightly to his left, a subtle twist of the hips, and Ethan's entire balance collapsed. Before anyone could process what happened, Seagal had caught his wrist mid-strike and redirected his momentum, sending Ethan sprawling onto the mat with a soft thud. No punches, no kicks. Just pure technique. Gasps filled the hall. Phones zoomed in. The crowd's cheers turned into shocked silence. Ethan rolled over, stunned. He hadn't even seen what happened. Seagal stepped back, calm as ever, and said, "It's not your power that worries me. It's your pride." Ethan's jaw tightened. He scrambled to his feet, brushing dust off his uniform. His students called out encouragement. "Get him, coach." But his confidence was shaken. He stared at Seagal, now realizing this wasn't going to be easy. For a few seconds, the two men just stood there, one young and burning with pride, the other old, but radiating unshakable peace. 2 generations, 2 worlds, face to face. The audience could feel the contrast. The air buzzed with anticipation. This wasn't a movie anymore, and this was real martial arts. Then the host's voice echoed over the mic, trembling slightly. "Ladies and gentlemen, we might be witnessing something truly special here tonight." Even Seagal's longtime students standing at the back exchanged knowing looks. They had seen this before, that calm before the storm, the patience of a master who only strikes once he's tested your soul, not your body. Ethan wiped the sweat from his forehead, trying to mask his frustration. "You're holding back, aren't you?" Seagal tilted his head. "I don't need to show everything to teach something." The audience erupted again, phones recording, flashes popping. This wasn't a match anymore. It was a battle of respect versus arrogance. Who would you put your money on? The young Taekwondo champion or the calm old master? Drop your answer in the comments below. And tell us where you're watching from, your country and city. We love seeing how far these stories reach. Seagal adjusted his sleeves, eyes steady. Ethan clenched his fists, stepping forward once more. The next round, everyone knew. Someone's pride was about to break. The room buzzed with murmurs. Phones stayed raised, recording every second. Ethan Lee paced in front of Steven Seagal like a lion in a cage, glaring, searching for any sign of weakness. Seagal, meanwhile, stood unmoved, calm, collected, hands loosely folded in front of him, his face unreadable. The silence between them was deafening. Ethan broke it with a loud laugh. "Is this it? The great Steven Seagal, the man from all those action movies? You barely move, old man." The crowd gasped. Some cheered for the drama. Others looked uncomfortable. Even those who didn't know martial arts could feel Ethan crossing a line. Seagal didn't react. He simply looked at Ethan as though observing a child throwing a tantrum. That expression, serene, almost bored, made Ethan's temper boil. "Come on," Ethan shouted. "Show me what you've got!" Or are those 6-time world champion stories just Hollywood fairy tales? The crowd began to murmur again. A few voices rose in support of Seagal. "Show him, sensei. Teach him some respect." Ethan sneered. "Respect? You have to earn that, not hide behind your movie fame." Seagal exhaled slowly and said in a voice so calm it cut through the noise, "The louder a man talks, the less he truly knows." The words hit Ethan like a slap. His pride couldn't take it. He started showing off, spinning back kicks, jumping axe kicks, spinning tornado kicks, and lightning fast, all aimed just inches away from Seagal's body. Each kick came closer, louder, faster, but Seagal didn't move. He stood still, his long robe brushing slightly with each gust of air Ethan's kicks created. To the crowd, it looked like Seagal was frozen, but those who knew real martial arts saw it differently. His eyes never left Ethan's center of gravity. His breathing was steady. He was studying, calculating. Ethan landed one last spin kick and pointed at him. "See that? You can't even react." Seagal finally smiled, a small, chilling smile. "When you finish dancing," he said quietly, "let me know." The crowd erupted, laughter, gasps, applause. Ethan's face flushed red. That single sentence hit him harder than any punch. He barked back, "You think this is funny? You think I'm some kind of joke?" Seagal didn't answer. He just raised one eyebrow as if to say, "You're proving my point." Ethan's students at ringside shouted, "Show him your speed, master. Don't hold back." Fueled by pride, Ethan nodded sharply. He squared his stance and started pacing again. "All right," he said. "No more holding back. Let's make this real." Seagal shifted his weight slightly, still calm, still composed. The kind of stillness that only years of discipline could create. Very well, Seagal said, his voice barely above a whisper. Show me what Taekwondo means to you. That sentence, so simple yet heavy, drew the entire crowd closer in silence. Ethan took a deep breath, then unleashed a storm of kicks. Fast, precise, and deadly. Each one cracked through the air like a whip. But Seagal moved like water. Subtle redirections, barely emotion. His hands deflected Ethan's legs just enough to throw his rhythm off. For the first time, Ethan's balance faltered. He stumbled and the crowd gasped. He recovered quickly, pretending it didn't happen, but everyone saw. His frustration grew. His punches turned sloppier, his kicks more aggressive. Seagal finally took a single step forward. Just one. Ethan froze instinctively, his instincts sensing something dangerous. Seagal said, "When you fight with ego, you've already lost." Ethan swung out of anger, a full-force spinning hook kick aimed at Seagal's jaw. But Seagal wasn't there. Before anyone could blink, Seagal had sidestepped, caught Ethan's leg midair, and pivoted his body just enough to send him spiraling into a roll on the mat. It was effortless, graceful, controlled. Ethan landed hard, gritting his teeth. The crowd exploded in disbelief. He sat up, staring at Seagal. The older man still hadn't broken a sweat. Still calm, still looking at him as if to say, "Is your lesson over yet?" Ethan's pride screamed louder than his pain. "You caught me off guard," he muttered. "That was luck." Seagal tilted his head slightly. "There is no luck," he replied. "Only awareness." The audience erupted again, some clapping, others just stunned. Ethan stood, breathing heavily. "You think you're better than me because you're old?" He spat. "I'll prove you're not." But Seagal remained silent, his presence alone enough to make the younger man's words sound hollow. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every camera was locked in. Even the host whispered, "Oh my God, this is intense." Ethan pointed at Seagal again. "One more round. No cameras, no crowd. Man to man." Seagal nodded once. "If you wish. But I won't fight you, I'll show you." The crowd leaned in closer. Something big was coming. If you were standing in that crowd, what would you do? And cheer for the young champion or the old master? Type your answer below. And tell us what you'd say to someone who disrespects their teacher. Ethan's breath slowed. His confidence wavered. Seagal's stillness felt heavier than any strike. The audience could sense it. The storm was about to break. The crowd fell completely silent. You could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights above and the faint sound of someone's phone recording. Ethan Lee stood in the center of the mat, fists clenched, sweat dripping from his temples. Steven Seagal didn't move. He stood there, his eyes half closed, breathing slow and steady, like a man meditating before a storm. "Let's see what you've really got," Ethan said, his voice low but trembling slightly. Seagal gave a single nod. "Very well. But remember this moment. It's not about winning or losing. It's about understanding." The words only irritated Ethan more. "Enough philosophy. Let's fight." Ethan lunged forward with a lightning-fast front kick aimed straight at Seagal's ribs, the kind of strike that could drop most opponents. But before it landed, Seagal's hand barely twitched. A small circular motion, redirect, deflect, and suddenly Ethan's leg was off course, his balance broken. Before he could blink, Seagal's palm was resting on his chest, gentle, but firm enough to send him stumbling backward several feet. The crowd gasped. It didn't look like Seagal had used any strength. It was pure control, pure precision. Ethan recovered quickly, but his pride was cracking. He growled, spinning into a flurry of kicks, high, low, spinning side, every move from a lifetime of Taekwondo training unleashed in a storm of speed. But Seagal didn't step back. Each strike was redirected, parried, or simply avoided with the smallest shift of his hips or a tilt of his shoulders. He moved like smoke. Untouchable, unpredictable, untamed. A hush fell over the crowd again. Even those cheering for Ethan were now wide-eyed. The energy in the room had changed. No longer a contest of strength, but a lesson in mastery. Seagal finally spoke mid-motion, his voice steady despite Ethan's furious attacks. "You mistake motion for power. True power needs no noise." The next instant, Ethan threw a spinning hook kick. Seagal slipped underneath it effortlessly and tapped Ethan's supporting leg with the edge of his foot. Ethan's body twisted and fell, but Seagal caught him mid-fall, lowering him to the mat like a teacher correcting a student. The crowd erupted in applause. Seagal didn't even look at them. He helped Ethan back up. Ethan's face was red, half from exertion, half from humiliation. "Stop holding back," he barked.
Fight me for real.
Seagal's expression softened. "You still don't understand." Then, faster than anyone could track, Seagal stepped in close. A blur of motion, one twist of his wrist, one pivot of his hip, and Ethan found himself trapped in an arm lock so smooth it looked like choreography. But it wasn't. He felt the pressure instantly. One wrong move and his shoulder would snap. The pain forced him to kneel. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Seagal leaned down and said quietly, "You fight to prove you're better. I fight to protect peace. That's the difference." Then, just as quickly, he released him and stepped back. Ethan sat on the mat, breathing heavily, staring up at the man he had mocked minutes ago. The camera zoomed in on his face. Confusion, frustration, and something new. Respect. Seagal adjusted his sleeve and looked toward the audience. "Martial arts," he said, "is not about ego or violence. It's about control of the mind, the spirit, and the body." The host, stunned, whispered into his mic, "Ladies and gentlemen, that was not a fight and that was a masterclass." The audience erupted in cheers. Some people even stood, applauding. A few of Ethan's own students were crying. Their hero had been humbled, but with dignity. Ethan stood up slowly, clutching his wrist, eyes lowered. Then, with visible effort, he bowed deeply. I was wrong," he said quietly. "I thought strength was speed. I thought winning made you better." Seagal nodded. "It's easy to mistake noise for wisdom. But silence reveals truth." The crowd applauded again. Seagal stepped forward and placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You have skill," he said. "But without humility, skill is just a weapon pointed at yourself." Ethan nodded, unable to speak. The arrogance that once burned in his eyes was gone, replaced by something far more powerful: understanding. Seagal turned toward the audience, offering a respectful bow. "Every fighter," he said, "must face their greatest opponent, their own pride." The audience roared. Cameras flashed. Clips of the moment began spreading instantly online. As Seagal walked off the mat, the commentators whispered to each other in awe. He didn't even need to hit him. He taught him a lesson he'll never forget. Ethan stood there alone, humbled but awakened, and for the first time in his career, truly silent. If you were Ethan, would you have swallowed your pride and bowed or kept fighting to prove yourself? Comment below. Do you think martial arts should be about strength or discipline? The crowd was still buzzing, half in disbelief, half in awe. Cameras zoomed in on Ethan Lee, the Taekwondo champion who had walked into the ring with arrogance, and now stood humbled before a legend. His chest rose and fell rapidly, his mind replaying the last few minutes in slow motion. Every move Seagal made replayed in his head, the effortless redirection, the calm voice, the way he never once struck in anger. It wasn't humiliation Ethan felt anymore. It was realization. The room remained silent except for the faint sound of applause still echoing. Seagal turned back, his calm eyes studying Ethan. "The hardest fight," he said softly, "is not against another man. It's against yourself." Ethan swallowed hard. The words hit deeper than any punch. He had trained his whole life for recognition, medals, titles, applause. But in this moment, he saw how small all that was compared to true mastery. Slowly, he stepped forward. Each movement felt heavy, not from pain, but from pride melting away. He bowed again, this time deeper, and said, "Sensei, thank you for teaching me what my trophies never could." The audience broke into applause once again, this time louder, more emotional. It wasn't just respect for Seagal, it was for Ethan too. Everyone could feel that something real had happened. Seagal nodded gently. "You are strong," he said, "but never let strength become noise. Let it become peace." Ethan looked down. "How do you do it?" he asked quietly. "How do you stay so calm, even when someone disrespects you?" Seagal smiled faintly. "When your spirit is steady, no insult can move you. When your heart is right, no enemy can break you." The words lingered in the air like a prayer. Even the cameras stopped moving, as if no one dared interrupt the silence. Ethan took a slow breath and said, "I came here to prove something. Now I realize I came here to learn." Seagal nodded. "Then the lesson is complete." He turned to leave, but the host stepped forward with a microphone, clearly still in awe. "Master Seagal," he said, The world just witnessed something incredible. What would you like to say to all the young fighters watching this right now? Seagal paused. Then he looked straight into the cameras and said, "Respect every opponent. Even when you are stronger, and remember, arrogance blinds, humility sharpens. The true warrior doesn't fight for pride, he fights to protect peace." The words echoed through the hall like thunder. People began clapping, some even standing to bow. Ethan's students, who moments ago were cheering his aggression, now had tears in their eyes. One of them whispered, "He taught all of us today." Ethan walked to them slowly, removing his black belt. He folded it and handed it to his oldest student. "You'll earn this again one day," he said, "but not through victory, through respect." The crowd's applause grew even louder. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was a transformation. Seagal, preparing to leave the mat, turned back one last time. His deep voice carried effortlessly through the noise. "A real master never humiliates a student. But sometimes, he must let them feel humility." That line struck everyone, a perfect balance of compassion and discipline. Ethan stepped closer. "Will you train with me someday?" he asked, still humbled. Seagal smiled. "You already started today." The crowd laughed and cheered again, this time with warmth. The two men bowed to each other, not as rivals, but as martial artists connected by mutual respect. Every camera flash, every cheer captured that moment, not of defeat, but of awakening. Then Seagal raised his hand slightly and said to the audience, "Remember this, that martial arts is not about fists. It's about character. You cannot master your technique until you master your temper." The crowd repeated his words, chanting them softly as if engraving them into memory. As Seagal walked away, Ethan turned to his students and said, "I thought I knew martial arts, but today I just learned its soul." His voice cracked slightly, but it was genuine, powerful. The crowd began to chant Seagal's name, their voices blending with the echo of applause that seemed to fill every corner of the hall. As the cameras panned out, Seagal exited calmly, hands behind his back, the very image of grace and discipline. Ethan stood still on the mat, eyes closed, breathing deeply. For the first time he felt peace, not victory, not pride, just peace. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real win. If you were in Ethan's place, when would you have apologized publicly like he did? Or walked away quietly with your pride? Comment below what you think makes a true martial artist, power or character. The next morning, the internet was on fire. Clips of Steven Seagal's calm mastery and Ethan Lee's humbled apology were everywhere. TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Every corner of the web echoed with one name. Steven Seagal, one clip alone, where Seagal redirected. Ethan's spinning kick with a single motion had already crossed 10 million views in less than 24 hours. The caption read, "The moment arrogance met mastery." In the comments, people weren't just talking about the fight. They were talking about the message. This is what real martial arts looks like. He didn't need to hurt him, he taught him. Power without humility is nothing. Even non-fighters shared it, writing captions like, "We all need a Seagal moment in life to humble us." Meanwhile, Ethan Lee sat in his small apartment, scrolling through the flood of videos, comments, and memes. Every few seconds he saw his own face frozen mid-fall or bowing to Seagal. It stung, but this time it didn't sting out of shame. It stung because it was true. His phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from students, coaches, even reporters. One text stood out. "You lost a fight, Ethan, but you won your soul back." He smiled faintly for the first time in days. That afternoon, he went live on Instagram, not to defend himself, but to speak. Over 500,000 people tuned in instantly. He took a deep breath and began, "I want to thank Master Seagal. What he did wasn't humiliation, it was education. I came in to prove something. He showed me that real strength is silent, calm, and controlled. I didn't lose that day, I learned." The comments flooded in, hearts, claps, messages of respect. Many wrote, "This is how a real martial artist speaks." News outlets around the world picked it up. Headlines read, "Steven Seagal silences arrogant fighter with wisdom, not violence." Humility goes viral. Ethan Lee's apology wins internet's respect. Clips were analyzed frame by martial arts experts. One commentator said, "Seagal didn't overpower Ethan, he neutralized him. That's mastery, that's discipline." By evening, both men were trending in more than 15 countries. Martial arts schools around the world began showing the clip to students, calling it the Seagal lesson. Meanwhile, Seagal himself stayed quiet. No interviews, no press, just silence, like always. When a reporter finally caught up with him outside his dojo, he simply said, "If the world learned something from that day, then it was worth it." The humility only made him more respected. A week later, Ethan flew to Los Angeles unannounced to visit Seagal's dojo. Cameras were waiting outside, but this time, it wasn't about spectacle. It was about closure. Ethan entered quietly, bowing as he stepped onto the mat. Seagal was there, teaching a small group of students. When he noticed Ethan, he simply smiled. "Back again?" Seagal asked. Ethan bowed deeply. "This time I came to learn, not to prove." The students stopped and watched as Seagal approached him. "Then you're already stronger than before," he said. They bowed to each other again, master and student. No cameras, no audience, just mutual respect. Over the next few hours, Seagal taught him subtle wrist locks, balance shifts, and breathing techniques, movements so gentle yet powerful that Ethan felt his mind clearing with each repetition. At one point, Seagal said, "You trained your body for years. Now it's time to train your spirit." Ethan nodded. "That's the part I always skipped." Outside, reporters were still buzzing, fans still debating online, but inside that dojo, time felt still. A quiet continuation of the lesson that had started with a challenge. That night, Ethan posted a final message on his page. "Ego fades. Respect lasts. Thank you, Master Seagal, for teaching me what no tournament ever could." It went viral again, not for drama, but for its truth. The comments flooded in. "This is what being a man looks like. Legends don't just win fights, and they change hearts. Real martial arts is about mastering your emotions." By now, even major networks invited both Seagal and Ethan for interviews. They appeared together once, sitting side by side. No tension, no rivalry. When the host asked Seagal, "What would you say to young fighters watching you two today?" he smiled and replied, "Never fight to be seen. Fight to be understood. Let your character strike harder than your fists." The audience applauded. Ethan nodded beside him, a quiet smile crossing his face. The viral sensation had become something more. A story about wisdom, humility, and the real essence of martial arts. That night, millions of viewers typed one simple word in the comments under the video: respect. If this moment inspired you, type respect in the comments. Tell us, what do you think separates a real fighter from a show-off? Discipline, humility, or control? Weeks had passed since that unforgettable encounter, yet the world still couldn't stop talking about it. What began as a fiery showdown had transformed into something far greater, a symbol of respect, honor, and the true meaning of martial arts. Clips from the event were now being used in martial arts schools across Asia, Europe, and America. Teachers paused the video right before Seagal's calm disarm and told their students, "This right here is control. This is mastery." On social media, fans created compilations titled "The Day Pride Fell and Honor Rose." Millions watched and commented. Parents showed it to their children. Fighters discussed it in podcasts, calling it the Seagal standard. Steven Seagal, however, remained the same, quiet, composed, and away from the noise. He continued teaching his small classes in Los Angeles, training only those who sought wisdom over fame. To him, the viral fame meant nothing. What mattered was that the message had reached hearts. Ethan Lee, on the other hand, had changed profoundly. The once fiery, pride-driven Taekwondo champion was now a symbol of humility. His next few public appearances surprised everyone. No flashy intros, no ego-filled speeches. Just calm confidence. At one event, he told a crowd of young martial artists, "Don't chase belts or applause. Chase mastery of yourself." That's what Seagal taught me. The audience erupted in applause. Even Seagal, watching the clip later, allowed himself a small, approving smile. Soon, organizations started inviting both of them to speak together at seminars. The first joint session took place in Tokyo. Hundreds of martial artists from around the world gathered, masters, black belts, and beginners alike. When Seagal walked onto the mat beside Ethan, the entire hall fell silent. It wasn't celebrity silence, it was respect. Ethan took the microphone first. "A few months ago," he began, I challenged this man thinking I had something to prove. I left that dojo with no trophies, but with something priceless, wisdom. He turned to Seagal. You showed me that a true warrior doesn't need to raise his voice to be heard. Thank you for that. Seagal bowed slightly, then addressed the crowd. Martial arts is not about who hits harder, it's about who stands calmer. The goal isn't domination, it's discipline. When you understand that, you've already won. His words hit every person in that room like a quiet explosion. The energy was powerful yet peaceful, the kind that left you reflecting long after it ended. After the seminar, thousands of young fighters posted online. The Seagal lesson: stay calm, stay humble, stay strong. It became more than a trend, it became a global movement. Dojos everywhere began ending classes with a new chant inspired by Seagal's quote, "No pride, no ego, only discipline." Meanwhile, Seagal continued teaching privately. Reporters kept asking him how it felt to become a global symbol of humility. He only smiled and said, "If they learn to respect themselves and others, that's the only victory I care for." Ethan, now a changed man, started mentoring young fighters, helping them manage their egos and emotions. Before you master the punch, he told them, you must master the pause. That line went viral too. Months later, at a charity event, Seagal and Ethan crossed paths again. No cameras, no audience, and just two martial artists sharing quiet laughter. You've come far, Seagal said. Ethan bowed. Because of you, Seagal looked at him kindly. No, because you were willing to learn. The two shook hands. It wasn't just a handshake. It was the closing of a circle. The once cocky Taekwondo champion and the calm master had written a story that would echo for generations. As they parted ways, a quote from Seagal's old interview resurfaced online. Greatness isn't measured by who you defeat. It's measured by what you overcome within. That line became the defining legacy of their encounter, a timeless reminder that the true essence of martial arts lies not in breaking bones, but in breaking pride. And so what began as a viral fight became a global lesson. Millions who watched didn't just see a contest, more, they saw the art of humility, the strength of silence, and the beauty of respect. If you believe real strength comes from discipline and humility, type respect in the comments. And don't forget, follow for more stories that prove true power doesn't shout. It stands still.